I'm Troy Kirby with the Auburn Examiner with a quick update on the Auburn City Council. The July 12th City Council study session held a 2021 legislative update relating to policing. This included an update from the Police Advisory Committee.
Again, my name's Dan O'Neill, I'm Chief of Police. This is going to be a lot of information to process and take in that we're going to throw at you over the next 45 minutes. So if you have questions or comments, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email or give me a call there. In May of 2021, there were 13 bills that were signed into law by the governor's office related to police reform. The four biggest bills that are going to impact policing the most are the tactics bill, use of force, the Blake decision, and duty to intervene. Some of the other key bills include impeachment disclosures, audits during independent investigations, electronic recordings, juvenile access to attorneys, independent investigations, protection orders. Also, new decertification laws for officers that engage in misconduct, grievance and arbitration panels, and law enforcement data collection. As a result of these bills, as you look through a lot of them, they're going to have a significant impact on the way that we police our community. And some of those changes are going to include potentially more online reports, officers spending more time at scenes, which could potentially stretch our resources thinner. It could require us, as we talked about earlier, to acquire body cameras. And it's also, it may require us to potentially walk away in certain situations and not make a physical arrest if there's not an imminent threat of bodily harm or injury to another person.
And good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope that everybody can hear me okay. Deputy City Attorney Harry Boucher here. The first bill that we'd like to discuss in greater detail with you is what's called 1054. This is a police tactics bill that takes effect July 25th. The primary things that this bill does is it bans the police use of chokeholds and neck restraints, which are also called VNR neck restraints. The other thing that it does is with the Criminal Justice Training Commission, it establishes a work group to formulate additional policies related to police use of canine officers. It also adds additional guidelines and restrictions on the use of tear gas and restricts the use of what they define as military equipment and restricts vehicle pursuits. That's a major piece of this bill as well. Under this bill, officers can pursue a vehicle if they have probable cause, only if they have probable cause to believe that a person's committed either a violent offense or a sex offense, as our state law defines it, or if they have reasonable suspicion to believe that an occupant of the vehicle is committing a DUI.
The use of force bill establishes a standard for the use of physical force by police officers, including providing those circumstances when force is permissible. This bill directs the Attorney General to issue a model policy on use of force and de-escalation by July 1st, 2022. The bill itself, though, and Auburn's requirements to comply with the bill begin on July 25th, 2021. So when can an officer use physical force under this bill as prescribed by the bill? That is limited to when necessary to protect against criminal conduct, when there is probable cause to make an arrest, effect an arrest, or protect from an in-custody escape. An officer can use physical force to protect against an imminent threat of bodily injury to the law enforcement officer, another person, or the person against whom force is being used. An officer can use deadly force only when necessary to protect against an imminent threat or serious physical injury or death. And it establishes a new duty of reasonable care for Washington law enforcement officers. 1310 also requires that when possible, though that term is not defined, but when possible, that an officer exhaust available and appropriate de-escalation tactics prior to using any physical force. The bill provides a non-exclusive list of those de-escalation tactics. They include items such as time, distance, and cover, calling for additional resources, including backup officers and/or crisis intervention team or mental health professionals, designating one officer to communicate with the subject, taking as much time as necessary without using physical force or weapons, leaving the area if there is no threat of imminent harm and no crime has been committed or is being committed or is about to be committed. And when using physical force, using the least amount of physical force necessary to overcome resistance under the circumstances and in consideration of the characteristics and conditions of that individual. Items to be considered under the bill include such characteristics as pregnancy, age, signs of mental, behavioral, or physical impairments or disabilities, perceptual or cognitive impairments such as alcohol or drugs, if the individual is suicidal, whether there's limited English proficiency or the presence of children. And then the bill also states that officers are to terminate the use of force as soon as the necessity for such force ends. So potential impacts we've highlighted on this slide. They may include delays in responses. So that might be because a mental health counselor or crisis communicator maybe is not available to respond to that scene. This is obviously a statewide bill, and the demands on our local resources are going to increase. And from the bill, there is no additional funding for local agencies, nor for those resources that are important to partner with as we work through these things.
Also heard was an update on community court.
This is a big part of community court and getting it connected to the people who need the services the most. And that's the eligibility criteria. You know, who's eligible for this program? What kinds of offenses? And this is something that we're constantly evaluating. This is a new program for us, so we're constantly gauging, you know, are we reaching the right people with the right types of offenses? But generally, we've outlined the types of offenses that we are looking at.
We've only been going since May 27th. I think that was our first meeting. So 34 people to date is a good number. Not everybody decides to opt in. Not everybody has even had court yet, because we do identify those people ahead of time so that they have the opportunity to make that decision at their arraignment hearing. But we're hopeful that with the criteria that we have, we can get a good crowd, so to speak, into community court, get enough people in there, and then we can look at expanding the criteria to see about getting more people in there, especially when we have our permanent space and a larger space for everybody to be in.
Also heard was the use of Axon Body Cameras.
This is the Axon Body 3. It's our latest camera. It has an LTE chip inside it that enables the GPS locating as well as the live stream functionality. I'm just going to run through a few quick spec slides so you can just understand kind of what we're trying to accomplish with it. So embedded GPS, simple operation and display. There are literally 3 buttons on the camera. We're not trying to make it complicated. From a security standpoint, we are best of breed. Multiple mounting options. I think we have up to 20 mounts right now, so you can literally choose what works best for each officer. Battery life is at the heart of everything. Without a battery, a camera is useless. So we build in refreshes into our program so that the officers get new cameras at years 2.5 and 5 to address not only the battery issue, because lithium-ion technology is only as good as it is, but also to get you on the latest, greatest. So say you deploy AB3 at year 2.5, we're on AB4, you would then deploy AB4. So it just kind of builds that into the ongoing program with no extra cost. And then rugged wearability, like these are purpose-built devices. These aren't cell phones or some of the other things you'll see out there. These are made to be go into the wear and tear of a law enforcement officer's day-to-day, whatever he might go through, which is quite a lot.
Thank you for watching the Auburn City Council Update, presented by the Auburn Examiner.